Hopefully they'll show up this time for me. Oh, there we go. The broadcast is live. Because last time the people's comments weren't showing up, but I wasn't a moderator.
Yeah, I
So
never did
hopefully it'll work this time.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you'll have to pay attention to the questions.
yeah, we can make it work. Okay, I'm going to move this off to the side because I don't really need it at the moment. We got threads, we got fabric. Let's see. And let's see if I can check it on. Let me go grab my other iPad and then I can also look at Facebook.
Okay.
Although usually the Facebook comments come through. Hello, everybody. Hopefully people
Oh,
are
there we go.
here.
Now we're getting some comments.
It's
All right.
It's the usual fun with technology.
Yeah. Well, and we're still playing with this new system, the StreamYard, which is newer for it's new for me, newer for you.
It gives us lots of good features, but it takes a little getting used to.
So good afternoon, Renee. Good afternoon, Bente. And I did figure out how to get comments. I just can't see. I know that I'm still up on the screen.
Yep, you are.
Okay. All right. I can't see comments and see pictures at the same time. I have to choose one. So
yeah,
I'm choosing comments at this point.
That's fine. I think we can make it. I think we can make it work. So
yeah.
I brought all my stitchy samples again.
Oh, good. Good.
In case anybody had questions on those.
Well, and I brought my kit. I have my kit sitting here in front of me, so I can show people what it is I'm working on.
Did you get your package in the mail yet?
I think it came yet. I think it came on Saturday, and I have not been to. I have a post office box, so I have to go to the post office, and I have not made it to the post office yet because I worked all day Saturday and I haven't left the house yet today. I expect it to be there though, so I will have it this afternoon. Oh, good afternoon from Copenhagen.
Oh, hang on one sec. You guys talk. I have to go tell the postman he can take my package away.
Oh, not a problem.
I have to go answer the door. It's FedEx.
So we have Mara. Hi, glad you found us. Thank you. Deborah, when did this start? Literally seconds ago. So.
Oh, just.
No, you're good. We just started, Deborah. Sharon, welcome. I'm so glad you got this worked out. As we were saying, this is a newer format for us. It ultimately makes it really versatile because I can be in Arizona, which is where I live, and Cathe can be in Northern California, which is where the shop is, and be able to both of us be online and be able to chat with you. So it's a great format. We're thrilled that you're joining us. So we appreciate it very much. Cathe, I think, is back on with us now.
I am. I had to go deal with the post guy, with the FedEx person who brought my shipment of the latest issue of Inspirations magazine.
Oh, that's always a great magazine. Oh my gosh.
I'm here at the shop by myself today. Normally on Mondays it's Jen and I and Marissa. Marissa is still out with COVID. She's still testing positive. Poor kid.
Oh, bless her heart. Oh
yeah,
my gosh,
Jen had stuff to do today, so it's like I've been bouncing between the plumbing. The water got turned off for a while. That got resolved.
No.
The Uline folks brought boxes that we used to ship some of the Sarah Rinders with that have like acrylic and other stuff in them. So they brought a whole bunch of those, and then it's UPS, it's FedEx, I got the scan form done for the post person. I got like 15 packages out today for people, so I at least got some more Sarahs out.
So if you haven't received your package yet, please thank you for your patience and your
Oh yeah,
understanding.
yeah.
Needle in a Haystack is a small staff shop, and they are working tirelessly to get all of your packages out, which is the reason that we've pushed back the official start date to June 8th. We thought we'd go ahead and have our little get together here today because we had announced it, give you a chance to ask us some questions. Um, we'll talk about a few things regarding the stitch along, but we wanted more kits to be in people's hands. And as you just heard Cathe say, one of her associates is out with COVID. So that continues to rear its ugly head in our lives, which is no
Yep.
fun.
And the other
So,
reason we decided to do it next month is I'm going to Bristol 3 jeans, and Nicola's coming as well. And
and
Nicola's
I
going to
will
bring
be at
Sarah,
Bristol
and
3.
Nicola's going to bring
Yes.
Sarah with her. So we thought we would do the first official stitch along. We're going to probably do it from my hotel room, from the couch,
Awesome.
with Nicola and Cheri and I. So I think it'll be a lot of
Yeah,
fun. It'll be a fun way to start.
it will. And I'll actually be stitching at the time, and anybody else that wants to join in, Cathe may be starting it. I don't know if
Yep.
Nicola will, but we'll actually be sitting there stitching and chatting and just generally having a really good time. Um, I know that Nicola will still be dealing with some jet lag, although I think she's already on her way, isn't she? I thought I
She was
saw a
going
picture.
to Tennessee. She was going to Tennessee for a while, and I don't know if she
Oh, good. So
was.
she won't be
I
dealing quite
I
with the
think
jet
she
lag
might
by
be.
the
I think she might be going to Tennessee and then going back to England, because I thought she was
go back
coming to.
home. Okay.
I thought she was coming to Phoenix on like the 6th.
Okay.
So I
Well,
think
then
she might
maybe
be
the
doing
worst of her
a
jet
couple
lag will be
across
over.
the
Bless
pond
her
trip.
heart.
Yeah, yeah.
She's. I couldn't.
Oh,
My
Susan.
fatigue
Yeah,
level would be too high.
Susan, don't worry about your kit. I don't think we've gotten yours yet. So the way the process works for those of you who haven't ordered from us before is from the shop before is we'll either send you a PayPal an email with a request for how to pay us via PayPal. It won't come through the PayPal system. It actually comes from us with the amount. If it's a credit card, we run your card, and then you'll get a shipment notice with the tracking number in it. And you'll get an email from the order system with the PDF, with the link to the download for the PDF for the master page, which is the thing that has this entire what's in the center of the chart, so that if you want to use it electronically, you can. So if you haven't gotten any of those things, it means your order's still in the queue somewhere. We're still waiting on 46 count fabric and more 40 count. Well, we're waiting for more of everything at this point, quite frankly.
Yeah.
It's like, it's
Well,
just, it turned out to be, so when I decided to do this with Nicola in 2021, that's actually when we started the conversation about doing Sarah. And then when we decided in 2022 what the release date was going to be, I thought we would mostly sell charts and we would sell some kits, but not the bulk of them. And I was wrong. So that's a good problem to have,
yes.
is that more people wanted supplies. And so it just kind of created an interesting dilemma in that regard. So what Nicola did was, so this is the center picture. So the full chart for this is actually what's in the PDF that you'll get a link to. So if your chart has already shipped or your full order has already shipped, that's what that PDF is. It's all these pages as one entire chart. It's
Right.
so dense that it's not something you would want to print. You actually do want to do it as an actual PDF, because otherwise it's just massive. But
right.
if you're going to put it in pattern, what is it, Pattern Maker, that a lot of people use? Pattern, there's something.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
There's some pattern tool. I happen to use it in Acrobat and just mark it up. But
Right.
Any of those kinds of things work. So if you haven't gotten either your shipment notice or the link to the PDF, it means we haven't gotten to your order yet. But we're getting Pattern Keeper. That's it. Thank you, Mara.
That's it. That's it. Thank you. Yes.
Several people had mentioned the name to me, and I couldn't remember what it was. So, let's see. So Deborah has a question. You're using 103 on 40 count. No, 103 on 40 count's fine because I use 103 on 38.
It's actually really beautiful. I have
So
done several pieces with 103 on 40 count, and I was actually doing that in conjunction with the designer who designed it with 103 and with a standard weight cotton floss because it was colors specific she was going for, and you can hardly tell the difference. Between the fact that there's 103 because silks fluff up just a little bit. That doesn't happen with cottons. It's beautiful.
well,
I
it
wouldn't
doesn't
worry about it
happen. It doesn't actually happen so
myself.
much with. It doesn't happen so much with SWA 100. It does more so with the other ones. I'm trying to get this straight on the screen there for you, Deborah. There's a picture of this in the featured tab, but this is 103 on the 38 count. So it's perfectly fine on the 40 count. It just depends on the coverage you like. If you happen to like really plump, sort of it just has a really dense factor to it, then the Soie d'Alger works better on 40 count. But I don't think it's a requirement because this is, let me go find my piece of 40 count. Okay, so this is the 40 count. So it'd be better for you, Deb, if you go and look at the pictures that are in the featured tab because this will make more sense. Because this is Soie Surfine on the bottom here. That's Soie 100, that's Soie d'Alger, and that's DMC. So even at this distance, you can tell that the Soie 100 actually gets pretty good coverage.
Yeah.
So I would say look at the pictures in the featured thing. And it's just one thread. Yeah, no, just one thread. I shouldn't say I never use. I do actually use 2 strands of Soie 100 occasionally. I do it for satin stitch because I like the way that if I make 2 passes, I can actually get a really, really fine look at satin stitch. But that is just one strand of Soie Surf. This is one strand of Soie 103. So I think it's a perfectly fine one. Yeah, I showed 2 strands, and the only reason I showed 2 strands, which is what the little stitches here are, is that I knew people wanted to know what it looked like if you used 2 strands. 2 strands on 40 count of Soie 100 is just way too dense. I don't happen to like it. If you're going to do 2 strands of Soie 100, you would want to do it on like maybe a 32. Even I think 36 is a bit dense. This is 28 count.
Right.
So this is the 28, and this is 2 strands of Soie 100, and I actually still think it's almost too dense. For cross stitch, I think it's too dense. I think it just gets to be kind of way too plump, but that's personal opinion.
Well,
I always tell people to kind of do your own little samples because then it helps you get a better feel for what your tension's like. My tension's pretty tight. I tend to be not that I'm a stressed out stitcher, or just that I tend to be a tight stitcher. Years ago when I took Brazilian embroidery, which is rayon threads, and you do a whole lot of bullion knots with it, the teacher I took the class from said I was the only person he'd ever met who could actually break the thread because my tension was so tight. So I tried to practice the zen of looser stitching. We might need a group for the zen of looser stitching people over the years, so that I don't spend quite so much time yanking on threads because I tend to do that. Yeah,
that'll be a little bit on your shoulders too.
Why do I like the Soie 100? I happen to like it for several reasons. The first is it's a round thread, so it's really, really round. This is the Soie Surfine, which is even thinner. So SWA 100 is just a really, really round thread. This is a cream color that I use for a lot of over one work on things. And it's like a sewing machine thread. This is just really, really
Right.
round. So if you take a look at close up of soie d'Alger, it looks like a normal stranded thread. It's just that it's silk. And so it's got that, it's got a nice sheen to it, but you can tell it's made from multiple things that have been twisted together. And as you stitch with them, they get kind of loose. And so they fill out more, which is a good thing. And I think of that as a feature, not a bug. SWA 100 and SWA Surfing both are really densely, tightly twisted threads. They do not unfurl. They don't come undone. So both the SWA 100 and the SWA Surfing can actually, you can do machine embroidery with them because they stay twisted. So it's more like I call them buttonhole twist threads. So if you ever did clothing, I made my own clothes when I was in my 20s, a teenager, and up until in my 30s. And so when I did buttonholes, I would actually use a buttonhole thread, which is very round, very tightly twisted, and it wouldn't come undone. And that's the way this stuff works. So it's a bit more like a machine thread than it is a normal needlework thread. So the other thing you might want to know about SWA Surfing, which is twisted the same. So this is 100 denier made from 3 strands that are twisted together. This is SWA Surfing is a 130 denier with 2 strands that are twisted together. SWA Surfing is what Hermes uses to do the finishing work on their silk scarves. So it's super fine, it's super smooth, and even the SWA 103, which is thicker, is also super smooth. You love 100D, but yeah, pin stitches are really hard to pierce. So if you're going to start and stop with a pin stitch with SWA 100 or SWA Surfing, do it with a beading needle or with a number 28 John James chenille. They're the only ones that make a 28 chenille because you need the sharp point to pierce the actual thread. So I would only use that to start it and then go switch back to a tapestry needle.
Yeah, that's what I use is the number, I use a number 10 beading needle when I stitch with 103 and when I stitch with SWA Surfing so that I can pierce it to do the pin stitch. Because that's all I typically stitch with because I stitch on 56 count 90% of the time. And I don't have any issues piercing that once I've used that finer needle.
Yeah, that makes a big difference for being able to do that because then you've got a sharp point, and a number 10 beading needle is a lot finer and sharper than a 28 chenille.
Yes.
A 28 chenille
will tell you that too.
Yeah, and a 28 chenille looks like a 28 tapestry needle. It's just that it's sharp. Deborah says, yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. You'd have a harder time getting soie d'Alger through a number 10 eye only because it wants to open a bit when you try to push it through. But there are threaders that will still work on a number 10. Actually, I've got threaders that will work up to a 15. One of the ones we get, the ultra fine needle threader actually is one of the wire ones. And it will actually go through a number 15, which is what they use for doing textile repair work with. So we have threaders that'll work on pretty much most things. It's just a question of, you can give us, you can always ask and we can always check. So yeah. Let's see, do we have any other questions that needed to be answered? I think that's it for the questions. I'm just scrolling.
Now,
did you want to show what you were planning on doing for the way you were going to break it up?
Let's talk about that. So in the past, I have kind of divided up the picture and done a graphic that way with lines in the picture. And this time, because of how the pages lay out, I actually broke this one down by pages. You'll have a couple months where the page is a little bit smaller And so therefore that allows you a little bit of catch-up time. So that was intentional. So month 1 is going to be page 1. Month 2 will be page 2. Yes.
And month 1 is actually where the lovely bouquet that I stitched is.
Yes,
so this is the one that I did on the 38 count. So it's a good place to start with actually being able to have like a complete motif that you can finish along with the bird and the butterfly also can get finished in that same month. Yeah.
Now, one thing I want you to keep in mind, and I'll go over this again on when we're doing the actual stitch along on the 8th, is that when you're stitching, and I give you these stitching assignments, please feel free to complete a motif. So for instance, there is a bit of a leaf that gets cut in half from month 1 to month 2. Sometimes, depending on how many stitches of a single color you get and how long that vertical row is, if you were to actually stop every stitch right there at the end of that month, and so what I'm referring to is get my calendar. Okay, right here. So what I'm talking about is here. That's a lot of stitches to have line up in a vertical row. So my suggestion would be to, one, either feather that over into this month a little bit. See that? Feather it over into that month a little bit. Or complete the whole motif. So you can do the whole motif next month or this month.
I think I would do the motif because then that way you also have a great anchor point for being able to, if you wanted to jump over here later.
Yes. And that's going to be really important as we go on in the months. So month 2 is page 2. Month 3 is page 3. Month 4 is page 4. And if you notice, page 4 is about half the size of the other pages. That's to allow you, I did that on purpose, so that if you feel like you've gotten a little behind, you can catch up. It gives you a little bit less to do that month. So I call that a catch-up month. Then we're going to go to stitching page 5. The center of your book is not counted as pages. So stitching page 5 is month 5. And I have posted in the featured tab this breakdown. So I made a post. This breakdown is posted. So you don't have to remember this. Just go to the featured tab and it'll be there. Then when we get to this page, page 6, that's the beginning of the big bird bath. That is actually going to be covered for 2 months. We'll actually work on this for month 6 and month 7. But again, it's that whole straight line here. I don't want you to stop dead on this line. I want you to feather it over into the next page a little bit, or feather it stopping a little short on this page. And if you don't know what feather means, that means you're going to take 2 or 3 stitches into past this straight line.
I'll be right back.
Because if you stop at a straight, no, you're good. If you stop at a straight line, you will have a vertical line show up in your finished piece, and we don't want that. So feather it over, either cut it a little bit short with an uneven finish line, or feather it over into the next page. So that's month 6 and month 7. Then for month 8, we're actually going to skip ahead to page 9 and 10, which takes us down underneath. So your border is still lining up, so you're not having to skip around. Everything flows into the next section. But I didn't think you wanted to spend 4 months just working on border. That gets, I mean, just working on the bird bath. That would get, that would feel like a lot to me. So I broke it up. Then, sorry, my graph just, there we go. So month 8 is page 9 and page 10 because they're both real small. Then month 9 completes that bottom of the chart and up the other side, starting up the other side with the border. So this is month 9, will be pages 11 and 12. So we're kind of doing a big C here. Then month 10 and 11, we go back and finish the bird bath.
Cool.
So we've got a little bit of a break up there. Hold on. I think my headphones just died. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because my headphones just died, so I have to take them out. Those didn't last nearly as long as they should have. And then month 12 is, again, what I call a catch-up month, and that'll be, this is month 12, is page 8. So everything flows into the next, but we're not going to take it straight across each single month.
So kind of across and then in the middle and down and then
down
kind of
and,
back
yep,
up.
And back up.
Okay.
Yep, that's what we're doing. And that way, again, we're not spending 4 straight months just working on the bird bath. You get to break that up a little bit by working on the border again and some of the other little motifs around the border that are part of the border. So it should work out well, and it is very doable to have done in 12 months because we do have those 3 months in there that are smaller that allow us some catch-up time.
And for those of you who are doing who want to do the over one with a different thread, so for the people doing SWA 100, we've suggested using the Swasserfine for the over one section where the lettering is, particularly on the denser stuff. And then if you're using Soie d'Alger, you can use the SWA 100. There's just one color that right. If you want this to be in, and it's fine if it's a different thread. If you want it to be a little bit different, you can do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And when we get
Julie, I'll pin it to the featured section, or either Cheri or I will pin it if it's just in the schedule. So Deborah, is it okay if I show you?
I'm sorry, I thought I had pinned it to featured. Thank you for letting me know. I will make sure it gets pinned to featured.
Oh no, Deborah's no. Julie said she found it. Hey Deborah, is it okay if I show a picture?
Featured.
Deborah, is it okay if I show a picture of the stitching picture you sent me via Messenger? Okay. So Deborah sent me via Messenger a picture of her stitching over one on the 40 count with the SWA 100. And it's going to be a little hard to tell from here. It's turning out pretty. Deborah, the issue you're having is your tension's too tight. So what's happening is you're collapsing the threads in the fabric. So my guess is, and this is a problem I have as well, is that when I stitch, I will stitch and I tend to do an extra tug at the end. Don't do that with SWA 100 on the 40 count. So just do the stitch, let it lay, do the stitch, let it lay. Don't do an extra tug. Because what'll happen is that if you look at if you look at it close up, what's happening is that it's actually collapsing the threads in the fabric because the tension's too tight. And that's part of what I was talking about with the me having to learn to do the zen on the zen of not stitching too tight, it is that I had to actually practice for a long time, not like years, but I did actually have to stitch and think about what is it that I'm doing that's making my stitches come out not in a way I wanted them to. And it was that I'm doing an X.
Right.
When I do the X, I do that extra tug, and that extra tug is collapsing the fabric. And it works differently on different fabrics. So on a 40 count that's denser, so the way fabric is woven is you can have those of you who stitch with witched fabric, actually I'll go grab some while I'm talking. The thread in the fabric dictates to some degree what it's going to look like when it's done, in the sense of how dense it is, how dense your threads look. So if I'm doing, say, a 28 count water linen from Swagart, as opposed to a 28 count fabric from Witched, the look is going to be different because the threads the fabric is woven from are different. So on this, these are both 28 counts. One's Cashel and one is Water Lilies from, so you can kind of see how sheer that is. You can see my hands through it. I mean, not just my hands, you can see my fingers through it. And that's because the thread that Witched uses, that Perman, because Perman makes this for Witched, that Perman uses, the threads are actually pretty thin. So even though there's 28 of them to the inch, the individual threads are pretty thin. So the holes are much more open. This is a lot easier to collapse if your tension is too tight, because when you're pulling it, there's not as much thread that you're wrapping your stitching thread around to be able to just collapse it.
It wants to move. It wants to pull in on itself. It wants those
and then this is 28 count Cashel, and you can still kind of see my hand through it, but not quite as much because the threads are a little bit denser.
Yeah.
So a 40 count Swagart and a 40 count Witched don't look the same, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that you're that's a bad thing. It's just different. You just kind of have to know that when you're working with a fabric, that if your tension is really tight, it's going to kind of pull in a bit, that you want to loosen your tension a bit. And yeah, Tabby Cat actually uses Zweigart fabric. So they're dyeing 40 count Tabby Cat is Newcastle, which is the name of Zweigart's 40 count. Zweigart names their fabric. So 20 count is 18/20 counts Cork, 25 is Dublin, 28's Cashel, 32 is Belfast, 36 is Edinburgh, 40 is Newcastle, 45 is either Bergen or Bristol, and the 56 is Kingston. So each of them has a name. They're actually the only company that names the count, as opposed to not just the count and the color. But try loosening it a bit. So do a little bit of my suggestion is do like I do with my little stitch samples, which I've now laid off to the side, is I do, so for this, I did over 2, but I did it in kind of a block because I can see my tension better when I'm doing it in a block. I can see how it relates to another stitch. So if you're finding that you're stitching it with it just a little bit too tight, then I would try the loosen it just a little bit. They also showed me a photo where there's a blue line on the edge of the 40 count Tabby Cat. You mean in the margin? I mean, typically most of the Zweigart fabrics this is what the margin looks like. It's kind of orange or kind of an orangey yellow. I have seen it be a different color over the years. But as far as I knew, I thought Tabby Cat only dyed Zweigart, but I could be wrong in that regard.
Well, that's what I thought too. At least that's all I've seen at the shop is.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's
is
just more knowing that you
good.
may need to adjust your attention to the fabric and to the thread, the combination of those two. Um, you know, it's just kind of the nature of when I'm really stressed out, my stitching is much tighter just
Mm-hmm.
because I'm kind of more in the kind of mood. And when I'm a little more zen, then my stitching
Exactly.
tends to be a little bit less tight. So,
Well,
yeah.
and if you find you're feeling a little tense and you're pulling that a little tight, do a little bit of shoulder relaxation, because if you
Yeah.
can keep your shoulders loose, it's one thing I had to learn when I used to quilt. I had to keep my shoulders loose, or my stitching on my quilts was tight and uneven. And so you've
Yeah.
got to keep
Yeah.
those shoulders loose and relax, and that translates then down into your hands and what's going on in your hands.
And the other thing I find too, not so much with cross stitch, but with more specialty stitches, is if it's something I haven't done for a while, I do a practice of it out in the margin, because sometimes I need to get my tension back to what it was when I was stitching on the piece. Cross stitch, I have a little bit less of an issue with that. I can usually do 2 or 3 stitches, back it off with the tension a little bit if I need to. But if it's something else, like if I'm doing, you know, queen stitches, I kind of need to practice out in the margin a little to get my tension back
Right.
to what it was, so that if I'm doing a bigger piece, that I'm not just finding that um, that it's just that it's all looking kind of wonky, because that's just kind of the nature of stitching. Yeah, I kind of have to go back, and it's kind of like baking. You know, you can bake
Right.
things 5 times and they don't turn out exactly the same this way. That Newcastle has a fine black thread along with the orange. I didn't think that was the case, but I'll go look, because we sell a boatload of Newcastle. Yeah, let's see, my Newcastle. Yeah, there's a really fine black one along the edge. Now that might be a distinction of which weaving machine they ran it on too. So in this one, so this is Newcastle, and there's so there's a fine black line right along the edge. There's the normal gold thing, and then there's a really thin black line along it.
Okay.
That might have to do with which of the milling machines they did it on, because they added extra equipment this year. Actually, last year into this year, they actually added an extra milling machine for, I think, 40, and it was either 40 and 46, or it was 36 and 40.
Well, they
Because they're,
definitely needed it for 40, that's for sure.
yeah, I think it was for
Because
36
nobody
and
can keep
40.
up with 40 count.
Well, the thing that's happened with Swagart over the years is that they, 10 years ago, there were not as many people hand dyeing fabric. Granted,
Right.
the people that were dyeing fabric was still buying and dyeing a boatload of fabric. But now that it's expanded into so many other people who are doing it now, that's their biggest sellers are the undyed. Is the white, the white that hasn't been sized. So
Right.
when
That's
the
prepared for
dyers get
dyeing.
it, if they're buying bolts of it, they're getting it unsized, which means they don't have to wash it to get the sizing out. So, but yeah, 40 count tabby cat should be Newcastle, as far as I know. As far as I know, I didn't think they dyed anything other than Swagart.
Right.
I think that's the only thing that, as far as what yours, Deborah, the picture you sent me, yeah, that is what my 40 count looks like. It's got that one thin black line along the edge. So that's something that they've added. It still has the orange line, which is really, this is the key part to show that it's a Swagart fabric.
Right.
And then the line along the edge might be a different color. I was looking to see if it was that way for yeah, even my cream one is that color too. It has that extra line in there. So that is probably a notation of which milling machine they ran it on, because they have a bunch of different ways to know which milling machine they ran it on. So yeah, cool.
Cool.
Do we have any other questions? we'll give you guys a few minutes. So our next session, Cheri and I and Nicola, we'll be doing the first stitching live from, at this point, we're planning on doing it from my hotel room at Jean's Bristol event. We're going to do it on that Thursday. We're still trying to figure out an exact time. We'll let you know a week or so ahead of time. And Nicola is bringing Sarah Rinder, the model, with her, so that we'll have her in our midst as well. So if people have questions, we can look at the model. I'm going to bring all of my fabrics, so I can kind of see what the difference is between the fabrics we're using and what the model is. Because I sent Leona the fabric to stitch with in 2021. So I haven't seen that fabric in a really long time. So it's kind of like, yeah, I kind of remember. Yeah, it you know, and like all things, hand-dyed stuff, even milled stuff changes color slightly over time. So,
right.
But I thought I'd bring the pieces I have. So, yeah. Let's see. Bente asks, will working on 45 count Nightingale work with the 103/1 in the phrase? No, I don't think so. I think it's going to make it way too dense. So let me go find my samples, because I did them on all of them. I think, Bente, that you would want the Swasserfine for the over one.
Right.
Because I think it's going to make it way too dense. So this is the 45 count over, let me move it a little closer. There we go. So this is the 45 count. I'll stick it on the book so it doesn't wobble. Kind of hard to hold it up to the screen and not have it wobble. And the bottom, so this is the Swasserfine, that's the SWA 100, and this is over 2. I would not try to do SWA 100 over 1 on 45 count. I think you would go insane.
Yeah, the only way you could is if you did it as a tint stitch.
You could do it as a tint stitch. Yeah.
A full cross.
Yeah, you could do it as a tint stitch, Bente. But I think if you were going to do it as a full cross stitch, I would get the Swasserfine for it.
Yeah.
And I don't remember whether or not we've shipped your kit yet, but you can remind me. I've lost track. I've lost track of how many I've touched.
I don't understand why you can't remember every kit you've shipped.
Well, we have a spreadsheet. We keep track of everybody's order in. So we've got everything in the order system. Plus we've got everything in a spreadsheet that lists who, what order, what fabric, what threads, what extra bits they ordered. So we actually use both the spreadsheet and the actual order when we go to pull it, because otherwise it's just too hard to keep track of all the moving parts. No, the SWA 100, the extra thread for doing over 1 is not included in the kits because not everybody wanted it. So if you want it, just send an email. You don't need to do a separate order. We can always just do it for you. Or if you want to, if you've already gotten your kit and you want to do an order, it's easier just to send an email because I know what color it is. I think it's a different color in SWA 100 if you're doing for the SWA Dolce people, and it's a different color in the Swasserfine for the SWA 100 people. The color numbers aren't the same. So just send an email and say, I also want the, this is my order number. I want the thinner thread for the over 1, and we'll know. We'll go look it up. We'll know what you want. Or as my husband says, just give us your credit card. We know what you need.
That's a good man.
Yeah. But yeah, you can just send us another. Yeah, the thinner thread is only for the over 1 letters. So the only part of, unlike Hannah Campbell, where there's a lot of over 1, Sarah's, the only over 1 in Sarah is the letters in the top, and I don't even think the letters. I think the letters at the bottom are over 1 as well. Yeah, all of the lettering is over 1. Yeah, all of it's over 1.
Yeah,
so
it's
all the lettering, all the lettering is over 1. So if you want to do the letters over 1 in the thread that you're stitching the rest of the design with, just do the letters as tent stitch, so a half cross stitch. And if you want to do it as a full cross stitch, depending on the count you're working on, you might want to go to a thinner thread. So if you're working on 36 count and you want to do over 1 as a full cross stitch and you were doing it with soie d'Alger, I would do the over one with soie 100. And the same for, and if you're doing 40 count with soie d'Alger, I would use, or soie 100, I would use soie surfine for the over one.
Right.
So let me show you in a different way. So I wore my necklace today.
That necklace is so amazing. I've gotten to see it in person, and it really is an amazing necklace.
I'm going to put it on the tray because it's easy. It'll be easier to hold it. So this is done with. So I made this whole thing. So I'll turn it the other way so you can actually see it. So I actually do chainmail in my private life. Actually, I haven't done any in a while. So I made the chain and I did the soldering work as well. So this is a motif from a sampler that a friend of Janine at Acorns and Threads owns. And she did it for she did the motif for Janine's Sampler Guild, like, I don't know, 15 years ago, and kindly gifted me a copy of it as well. And so I stitched it all with soie surfine. So this is soie surfine over one on 40 count. So you can see how dense it is. So that's why I'm thinking that you would want to do on 40 count, 38, 40 count, 45 count, you want to do the over one work with soie surfine. Just because you'll get the nice plumpness of the letters, but you won't have to fight with it as much if you're doing a different thread. So I just think that it would be easier to do. So if you have already gotten your kit and you want the thinner thread, just send us an email and we'll look it up. No, Deborah, the letters aren't left out. The way the design actually has all the threads you need in it for everything. It's just that some people decided that they asked me early on if they could do the over one in a thinner thread, and I said yes, and figured out which one it was it needed. So that's the only reason.
Right.
So if you wanted to do if you only wanted to do the over one, if you want to do the over one for the letters in the thread that you're stitching the rest of the design in, it's fine. Just see whether or not you like the density of it. If you think it's too dense, you can always get a thinner thread for it. So.
Right. Or again, so you could do it with that half cross stitch, which I've done too.
Marianne asked, when we get to the month with words, please distinguish between tent stitch and half stitch. They're on the surface, they look the same. So let me show you so I have a PDF, I have a printout, since we sell needlepoint as well. I have this primer. So if you want to know how to do tent stitch and you've never done it before, if you go to the shop website, to needlestack.com, and you look on I think if you look under needlepoint, it's there. But it's a little PDF you can print. So this is my little primer for how to do tent stitch. The surface of the stitch for a half cross stitch and for the tent stitch, the front looks exactly the same. The difference is the back. So on a half cross stitch, you would literally do a half cross and you end up with a straight line on the back. For tent stitch, you end up with a diagonal line because the travel path is different. And the reason I do tent stitch on needlepoint, on cross stitch fabric, is it doesn't slide. So if I'm trying to do a half a cross stitch, a lot of times the thread will slide under either the vertical or the horizontal thread. And so I just always do a tent stitch. So I'll add the PDF to the files for Sarah's group. And so that you can see what the tent stitch looks like.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add it because it's just a PDF that we give to all our customers who are trying to figure out how to do it. You don't need to worry about the basket weave part because that really is for needlepoint. But you might be interested in learning how to do basket weave. So, so yeah, when we're done, I'll add it to the files tab. So anyway. So I think we might be done with questions. It's let's see, what time is it? Oh, it's 10 minutes to 2. I think we can probably be done. So if you have any questions in between, obviously just post them to the group. And then the next time we will see you live, Nicola will be with us, and we'll have Sarah's model. She'll be with us, and Cheri and I and Nicola will all be in the same room.
Yep, we'll be in the same room and we'll be stitching away. So if you don't have your kit yet, if you don't have your kit yet, grab something and stitch with us. Whatever it is you're stitching on, sit down, stitch with us, chat with us, and have fun. If you've got your kit, great. And there's no
and hopefully we'll have a lot more of them out by then.
Yeah, it'll all be good. And again, there's no cross stitch police, folks.
Nope.
So just keep that in mind.
Just have fun.
Yes.
Cool.
All right.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
It was good to see everybody or talk to everybody. Yeah. All right.
Bye-bye. Happy stitching.
Bye-bye.